and the topic is leveling up your app economy / monetization. So just to start to lay the groundwork, if you're unfamiliar with Ad Economy, we are a video mobile platform. We particularly specialize in mobile video advertising, and in particular rewarded video. So throughout the conversation, I'm going to be mentioning ad monetization or video ads, and in most cases, if not all cases, I'm referring to rewarded video, which is just the perspective that we have, and that's where we see a lot of the success with our publishers. So for today, what I really wanted to do was focus on best practices. I've been having a lot of conversations with studios and developers over the past several months, and there's a lot of things that I've noticed that we take for granted, seeing a lot across the network, working with different publishers, that I feel are best practices, and some things that we just often take for granted, but I feel like they may not be, and it's a good opportunity now as part of the context of how to level up your app economy to go through the different areas where there are best practices. And so in particular, strategic rationale. Why does this make sense? Why is ad monetization an important part of your monetization strategy, or why should it be? Talk about some ad network insights, things that we see that we'd like you to know in terms of working with us that'll help you down the line to maximize your monetization. Mention some of the KPIs that you should be looking at, some of the KPIs that we look at, because I feel like that helps align everything that you're doing within the game against what your goals are for your monetization. And then I'll jump into some of the best practices when we talk with our developers, get into the in-game placements and things that make sense for you when you're thinking about where to do rewarded video. So with that, let me just dive in, and here's some of what I consider best practices around the strategic rationale for video monetization and rewarded video. So really, there's really only 3 ways for you to monetize your app or your game right now in the mobile economy. You can do paid, which is subscription and paid download. You can do in-app purchases, and you can do video monetization or ad monetization. The first 2 are really challenging, and they take time and effort to get right. And so with ad revenue, you at least can diversify those revenue streams while you work on and really work on getting the in-app purchase or the economy correct. And I think it was probably about a month or 2 ago, Unity came out with a study that showed that over 50% of game publishers are now using rewarded videos in the game. So more and more developers are realizing this and putting ad monetization into the game. The other thing is, we've all heard the stat, 1 to 2% of your users actually pay for the game. So that leaves 98 to 99% of users who don't pay. So ad revenue is definitely a great way to try and access those other users to monetize, to keep your economy going, to keep the game running. The other thing that the Unity study did that I like to quote is that over 70% of users in the study say that they prefer rewarded video as a way to pay for the game. Over 60% of those users actively access rewarded video. So what that means is, if you're not doing that, you're leaving money on the table. Users want to do it. They've been around for a while. They've been trained to use it. So if you're not accessing it, you are leaving money on the table. The next one is one of my favorites. We were talking to a developer who said that they launched a game and their economy wasn't right, and they were struggling for 3 or 4 months, maybe even 5 months to get it right. And by the time they finally felt like they were ready to get their economy in shape, they ran out of money and the publisher shut them down. And what he said to me is, like, if we had put in video monetization or ad monetization from the start, we would have had a revenue stream that would have helped subsidize the development on that game. And so I love to think of ads when you're first launching, video monetization, rewarded video, as a way to help subsidize development costs. So if your economy's not right, this is a way for you to get right and have some income coming in the door. And finally, I think one of the most important strategies to think about is rewarded video in particular is a way to incentivize your users to do something, whether it's engaging them, retaining them, getting them to monetize, creating core loops within your game and then aligning your rewarded video against those is a key way to use that. And it not only gives you income from the videos, but it also gives you a tool to create those at core loops. So some things from our perspective that I want to do, and the first one's a little bit cheeky, but ad networks are not ATMs. You don't just plug in and we distribute cash. It's actually a business, and we're trying to make things work. The key thing to realize here is that advertisers are a key part of the business, and they actually drive the business. They are the ones bringing the capital into the system, and they're looking for certain things, whether it's reach, users, LTV, ROI, whatever it is it may be, that's what they're looking for. And for you on the monetization side, it's good to know those things because you can align your business and your monetization against that. You can use segmentation, you can use your blacklisting, there are different placements you can do. So if you know what your advertisers are looking for, you can be proactive about managing your business. The other thing is you're going to hear a lot if you talk to ad networks, the first 2 impressions, you're going to get a lot of activity around that. And they're important. Those are the first videos that your users are going to see. So there is a value to that. But if you only show 2 videos to each user, you're not going to make a living doing it because that's not going to produce the volume that you need to stay in business. So while those first 2 are important, all the others are important as well. And so it's important to understand that you're looking for ad networks that understand the entire spectrum of what you're trying to achieve, especially when it comes to your volume. And then my favorite one is on the monetization side in our games publishing group, we want to make you the most money possible. We're completely aligned with your interests. And so I recommend, as a best practice, getting to know your ad networks, forming relationships. We're constantly doing things to help with looking at placements. We're trying to look at blacklists. There's all types of things we're trying to understand to make sure that you guys are maximizing your revenue. So don't treat them as sort of the ATM machine. Treat them as a trusted business partner. So now the KPIs, and these are the things that really drive the business and the things that we look at when we're trying to optimize. So on your side, these are the KPIs that you control as a publisher or a developer. The first is daily active users, and this is a nada. I think everyone wants to get as many DAU as possible. The only thing I would caveat here is sometimes we don't see all your DAU depending on how you've set up SDKs and how it initializes. So this is the top of the funnel. To the extent that you can maximize this is the great starting point for the business. The next thing that we really focus on is use rate or DUV. And these are, use rate is the total number of users that see the video divided by your DAU. And that essentially gets you to your unique viewers. So what's important about this is what we see. As an ad network, your DUVs are what come into our network and what drive the impressions. Which leads you to, once you have your daily unique viewers, how many videos are they seeing? What's the frequency that they're seeing? And you know what I should mention? I forgot to mention this before. So the numbers here is just a quick snapshot. They're global averages from our top 1,000 publishers. So just to give you some context of what you might be trying to target to as a benchmark, that's what these numbers represent. So example, frequency right now for our publishers, they're seeing about 3 videos per daily unique viewer and getting about 500,000 impressions per day. So that's what you add into the economy of the ad network and the advertisers is your daily impressions. So the things that we look at on our side is fill rate. We want to make sure that we're maximizing your fill. So every impression, we would love to get you 100%. That's not always doable, and that's why we always recommend having 2 to 3 ad networks to work with, because it's not just total, it's global. And so there's certain regions where ad networks are strong, and there's some that they're weak. And the goal is obviously to maximize to 100 because that gives you the most potential to maximize revenue. The next one is a little bit more campaign specific. If we're looking at a CPI campaign, which performance marketing, they want an install. So a CPI is the install rate. And this is the ability of the creative, of your placement, of the user to convert into an install for our publishers. So this is one that we're actively tracking. And then finally, the all eCPM, and I'm sure as you're looking into it, as you're starting out, that this may be one that you hear a lot about. The thing to think about here, though, is that it's important because it's like a stock price. It tells you, the health of your impressions, but it's only one piece of a bigger equation. And the way I like to think about it is as a stock price. So if you say Tencent is currently trading at $25 in the stock market and Lululemon is trading at $77 in the stock market, does that mean that Lululemon is a better company or a bigger company? And the answer is it's not. Lululemon's got a $10 billion market cap and Tencent has a $230 billion market cap. So that eCPM is good for some comparison, but ultimately what you care about is your ARPDAV, which is your average revenue per daily unique viewer. And this basically takes your total earnings divided by your total DUV. And this is a representation because it takes into a volume, eCPM, and earnings, and gives you a number that you can directly relate to. This is what my revenue will generate. This is what a user will generate in revenue. And you'll see, and I put a couple up here, that it varies by region, which is important. If you've got a high audience in the U.S., your DUV is going to be high, your ARPDAV is going to be higher than, say, the rest of the world. So that's sort of the business side. When you think about putting best practices into adding rewarded video into your app, we really recommend six steps, and I'll go through each one here in more detail. The first is, make sure that ad monetization and rewarded video is part of your planning. It's best to do it during, game design, during your monetization design. Plan for it. Understand sort of what your goals are around the metrics you want to drive and figure out how you're going to get there. So if you want to drive 500,000 impressions per day, how are you going to get there? Strategize around that. Where can we put in the placements? What type of placements? And then get your teams to commit. This is a good opportunity for you guys to have the development team, the marketing team, and the game monetization team all on board and embracing ads as part of the game. Then don't limit yourself. Think about rewarded video as an opportunity to emphasize different areas of your economy or your game. So hard currency, soft currency, incentivizes users to engage with the store. Consumables are a great way to get people to test out items that you may want to sell in the store. It's a great way to have them engage more with the game. Perfect example is Freeblade, or Glue has Tap Baseball. And these are ways where right before you go into the game, you watch a video, you get a boost. Whether, in a baseball game, it's a stamina or a hitting boost. Whether it's Freeblade, it's a buff to a certain characteristic. But it's a great way to tie the consumable. And then obviously if you have content gates, hey, you're out of energy, watch a video, get enough energy to play another game. So then the other thing is to think about strategically where they go. Make them as much, and I'm going to use the term native as possible, right? You want to make sure that the video feels like it's part of the game, or that the reward, the buttons, everything around it is in the context of the game. Make sure that it's seamless. Don't hide them in drop-down lists, but make them first and foremost in the game. So when it comes time to initiate the video, it's there and the user can engage. Put it in the store. It's a good place to always have an opportunity for the user to earn some free gold, because then they can go directly, or whatever the currency, they can go directly and use it then. So the other thing is make it a seamless experience. So you want it to trigger when the user needs it most and have it be available to the user immediately. This ensures that they have a positive connection between the video and their in-game experience. Again, make sure it's visible. If you have the opportunity to make it unique items with a video makes the importance of that video even more, and users will be more trained to interact with that. And make sure it's engaging. Going back to the Freeblade and the Glue mobile example, like, it's engaging. I got a boost. I'm playing better. I get to the next level. Maybe I play another session, or I have a longer session. So I'm more engaged because of that opportunity. And maybe the most important is when you guys are out there and you're thinking about when is the best time to put in videos, it's immediately. It's during your betas. It's to make sure that you can test placements. You can test different rewards, the combinations of the two. You can see how you're tracking against your benchmarks that you set in the planning stages, and be able to decide where do we need to make changes. And then you can also understand how that's going to impact your ARPDAU or your revenue in the future. And then so finally, once you're out in the market, the last step is always be analyzing and optimizing. And this is a lot of stuff that we do on the ad network side, and why it's great to work with us and form that relationship, because we're always looking at DUVs. How can we help you with your DUVs? Is it a placement? Is it a reward? Are there things that we can test? Are there other zones that we think are better fits? The other thing we like to look at is session time and making sure that you're matching the video play to the session time. We've had many developers who've complained about not having enough ads, and we realized that their average session length was 2 minutes, but their first video didn't show until 3 minutes. And so you want to make sure that you have a way to overlap that, and maybe the video earlier gets you to a 3-minute average time as well as seeing a video. Blacklist is important. We understand that you want to have different you want to exclude certain publishers, keywords, genres, but it definitely shouldn't be a set it and forget it type of thing, because things change. Genres get popular, advertisers start spending more, and being on top of that, working with your ad network to say, hey, we want to take someone off blacklist, or maybe we thought they were a problem, they're really not. It's an opportunity to optimize and open up a lot more revenue stream through that. And then finally, just monitor your geos. Each geo has a different makeup. So if 90% of your impressions are coming from a geo that isn't driving advertising dollars, you may be limited in what you can do. If you're in the big 4, big 6, mobile, that's an area where you're probably okay. And the goal is then to think about how can I shift users or get more users through advertising. Just as an example, one of the titles that we really like because they've done a great job is Angry Birds Go. And just to give you an example of everything I talked about, when you come into the game, this is a kart racer based on the Angry Birds franchise or IP. And you'll come in and you'll immediately see that the video, the placements are in-game, they're native, they're part of the experience, they're not drop down, they're not buttons off to the side. If I click on this, and let's say I want to click on can I get over there? I'll just click here on the screen. If I click on this, let's say I want the slingshot. The slingshot goes away and you'll immediately see I've got a ramp. So now it's like the immediate, and it's important, and it's engaging. And let's say I want to now get the propeller. I click on the video, assume that it's live. There's a lot of particle effects. Now I immediately feel the effect of the video now is connected to a more powerful cart. So again, the difference being before and then after. So this is a great example of taking all of those best practices and actually putting it into practice. The last thing I would just say, and this is just a bonus, one of the things that we've been working with at Ad Colony that I think is really exciting is using video to merchandise product. So now I'm not thinking just about video monetization, but how can I use video to actually merchandise items in store. So instead of having a static image and maybe some text around an item, which gives me maybe a little bit of understanding, now I can have a video that actually shows that power-up or that weapon or that higher level character that I can immediately know. I know how to play that character. I know how I'd use it in the game. So I think the next wave in terms of video is using it on the IAP side. And one of our early stage partners on this is Hungry Shark. So if you're not aware, you're basically a shark and you eat things. But each time you go into the game, you have boosts that you can add to your game. And what they've done is when you click on the boost, you'll see the same thing. There's the text, there's the icon, but now you have a video and you can see it in action. So as an example, let me just do this quick video and then I will open it up for questions. So we're evolving the character. We go to play and here's our power up. We want the laser. I don't know what it does. Oh, that's cool. So you can directly go in because I have the amount of coins necessary. I can go in and I can buy the laser, and immediately you see that the laser's on the shark. So here's another one where the jetpack, that's also something that might be interesting. It's not PC, I apologize. And now I don't have enough coins, but it drops me into the store so I can make the purchase. That was a big purchase, by the way. That was a $50 purchase there. That's a good. And then finally, the last is, if you think about it, it's just good for awareness as well. So now I've spent a lot. I've spent $50. No way am I buying anything more. But I can see what this does, and I actually may want that in the future, but I have the visual representation of it now in sight, sound, emotion. So that's that. Let me just close out there. So a lot of this stuff, if you're just new, maybe you're considering, ad monetization, or maybe you're just integrating or even just launching, hopefully this is some best practices that you can take away with you and think about as you're extending it. If it's something that you're already out in the market, maybe it's a good refresher. Just hoping that, everyone here who's out in the market has something that they can take away from it. So, any Q&A? That's easy.
So does everyone here actually have video implemented into their games? Because if not, as Ian so correctly mentioned, if you're not accessing that video, you're leaving money on the table. I thought that was a really powerful quote. I'll throw a question at you if you don't mind. So there are a lot of different ad networks out there. Obviously, AdColony's been in the game for longer than most, but how would you say AdColony, or how would you differentiate AdColony versus some of your competitors?
Well, I think for us, it comes down to two components. One is relationship to start, is that we're very active about making sure that we're working with our developers. I think the other is scale. I'd love to say eCPM, but eCPM varies by networks. And some, on some games we're doing great and some we're not. But I think for us, it's always the ability to get to an ARPDAV, which is the scale and the eCPM. And I think as you grow and as you get bigger, you need those type of ad networks. And we're definitely one of the big players in the market just because we've been around for 4 years. I think we're also pretty well battle tested. And so, our tech is pretty rock solid. I hate saying that, but I mean, especially with the new OS 10 coming out, but we don't have as many issues with our SDK just because we've ironed out most of the bugs. So it's a pretty smooth implementation and ease to get started.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen, just sort of aggregate across people you work with, on the differences between monetization of just like a standard video interstitial versus rewarded, and kind of some of the increases that now rewarded video brings to the mix, just from our KPI standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I would say that the majority of our implementations right now are rewarded video, and we do see higher videos watched because of the rewarded component. So in terms of generating an impression and a completed view, rewarded is by far the most popular that we've seen. But having said that, it really should match to the style of your game. So we have games like Episodes, which doesn't have an economy, and it's more like a true TV experience where you have to watch videos in between breaks, and they do a great amount of business that way. I'd say that you want to match. But I think ultimately rewarded video is proven to be one of the better user experiences because it's opt-in. The user's electing to do it, and because of that, you see more completed views because they want to get that the reward at the end of the video.
So really quick question in regards to brand video versus performance.
Yep.
AdColony has a mix of both.
Yes.
How are you guys balancing, your brand inventory and your performance inventory, and how do you guys plan to optimize, those two categories so your publishers, get the best of eCPM and also fill?
That's a good question. I mean, ultimately, we want as much brand as possible coming into the network. In terms of brand, and in terms of optimizing across the network, a lot of that is done through our core engine and trying to match those placements against inventory across the network. Unfortunately, brand was big Q4. They've dropped off here in Q2, and we're waiting for it to come back. Ultimately, what we would love to do in terms of distribution is get brand to everybody. Sometimes that's not the case. You're trying to optimize because we have to balance brand wanting their metrics against sort of what we're seeing on the monetization side. So, the goal is to have brand for all. In terms of optimizing, a lot of that's done. We don't have tricks and switches on our sort of the physical side. A lot of that's matching up based on the network.
All right, we really got to cut it.
Okay.
But thanks very much, Ian. Let's give it up for Ian.